Today we are talking about one of the most underrated players in the entire National Hockey League. You saw his beautiful mug in the thumbnail, people. He's the man with the stash, the dad of the group, and he's making $8 million a year. Today we are talking about JT Miller. Because what I wanted to do was go over to an article recently published by the triple threat himself, iMac, on sportsnet.ca. Everybody likes iMac, right? He gets the articles done, he gets the radio hits, and then he does TV segments as well. Triple threat, eh? Because yesterday, iMac published an article talking about JT Miller and going beast mode. Miller is determined to prove the Canucks are not one-season wonders. The link to this article will be in the description if you wanted to go ahead and read it yourself, but the reason I like this piece is because it has a bunch of quotes from Miller himself that go over pretty much his mindset heading into 2024-2025. Now, to get things started, I wanted to talk about where JT Miller was last year, because it's very easy to note the differences that Miller has had from year to year. He was acquired by Vancouver back in 2018-19. He was a 47-point guy in 75 games at the Lightning that season, and then shortly got acquired at the draft. From there, Miller started producing the points that he did, 72 points in 69 games in 2019-20, 46 points the year after that, 99 points, 82 points, and then 103 points. And every single year, I feel, was a completely different year. Miller's first season in Vancouver was nothing less of a surprise. The guy blew out all expectations and he was over a point per game, the leading Vancouver Canucks point scorer that year, and it wasn't even close. He had 6 more points than Elias Pettersson, and everybody was saying, wow, this guy's great. And then the season after, he dipped to under a point per game, and quite frankly, every Canucks player sucked in that 2020-2021 season. The team was riddled with COVID, and it was a North Division. They were getting smoked by Tyler Toffoli and the Habs every other game. It was a tragedy. And the Canucks needed to bounce back the year after once the league got back to 82 games, and Miller did that. He got to 99 points. The season after, though, in the midst of the Bruce Boudreau firings and everything else in between, Miller ended up with a point per game year once again, 82 points, a decline from the 99 points that he had had last year, and a lot of people would note that his defensive game and his engagement was really all over the place in 22-23. There were reports about a toxic locker room, the Bo Horvat versus JT Miller, who's choosing sides, who's who kind of thing, and a lot of people were kind of debating whether or not JT was worth the extension that he had signed, which would see him making $8 million a year. The year after, though, JT seemed to get rid of all those issues. He was no longer an inconsistent, defensively liable bum who would stop back-checking in overtime and who would stop giving the puck up on lazy turnovers, because Rick Tocchet came in here and pushed this guy to the limit. Not only did he have a great season points-wise with 103 points, but he also was by far the most consistent forward on the team. Better than Besser, better than Pettersson, better than Kuzmenko, and everybody else in between. Miller was the best forward. And so, heading into this season, let's go out there and read some of the quotes from Miller in this iMac article. We put so much emphasis on summer training and coming into camp early as a group and getting together. Right now, it feels like last year. Feels like we're a close team. Even the new guys. This actually does make sense because we did have word going around the grapevine that even though JT didn't play in the preseason games up to this point, he was the guy that was actually one of the best fitness players in all the Canucks preseason training camp testing. In a bunch of the physical tests, all the cardio work, Miller was consistently near the top, which checks out when you think about his drive and his work ethic. Whether or not that carries into this upcoming season, we'll see. In the last 5 seasons, iMac writes, only 10 NHL players have scored more than Miller's 402 points, and of that dazzling group, only Draisaitl and Tkachuk have punched the regular season clock more regularly than Miller at 364 games. But all 10 of these players have played more than Miller's 13 non-pandemic playoff games, achieved last spring when the Canucks surprised everyone but themselves by taking the Oilers to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Tournament's second round. We've been told how great a season it was by so many fans and media and whatever, but that's not the be-all and end-all, Miller told Sportsnet during a one-on-one interview at camp. We want to be contending for a Stanley Cup every single season. We showed last season we can do that. We've been talking about setting a standard and a culture and an environment, character as a group. To do that, you just have to do it every time, every year. IMAC then writes here, that was the consistent standard that Miller grew up with as an NHL player. First with the Rangers, and then for 2 seasons the mighty Tampa Bay Lightning, as they were figuring out how to become a repeat Stanley Cup champion. Yeah, you can go into the playoffs, but there are teams that have proven that after one try, they can go win it. But typically, you're in there for a long time trying to win it. I mean, the Pens won in what, 2009? And then they had to fight for 7 more years to get another one? It seems like it takes time. There's a lot of stuff that I bring on a day-to-day basis that I learned from the leaders of the Rangers and the Tampa Bay guys. There were some unbelievable, probably Hall of Fame players there that played in the playoffs for 10 or 12 straight years. They talked about standard all the time in Tampa Bay. We talked about standard all the time when I was in New York. I was just talking to somebody recently about that Rangers group and how they came so close so many times. I mean, it was just crazy. In Tampa, how many times were they capable of winning it before they won? It takes repetition. And when it comes to the team beside him, Miller seems very optimistic with how the squad has changed, even the guys that they added. It's not my job to evaluate management, but I think they did an unreal job, Miller said. It's so exciting as a player. It shows that they have confidence in you when you bring veteran guys that have played and have done really well. Guys that have played playoff games, guys that can score, guys that can defend. I mean, you've got to be on your game, or if you don't bring it, the next guy's coming in. That's what you want within an organization. When you talk about standards, that goes up and down the lineup, into the minors. It's like a culture within the organization. When they bring in a lot of good players like that, a lot of depth within our team, you know it just makes us stronger. Now, I want you to do a little bit of homework, because this comment that we had just read out of JT Miller is so different than the conversation we had a year ago, wherein Miller spoke out about the toxic environment the Canucks had in 2022-2023. We are now 1 year removed from that, and the team is in such a better spot. It's incredible to see the details there. Now, IMAC at the end of this article goes out there and asks the big question, will JT Miller be stronger? Can he be? Listen, I don't want my ceiling to be based on points, Miller said. This is what I always try to tell you guys. I may play an even better 200-foot game this year and have 20 fewer points. That's not a failure to me. If our team is winning games, we might score less, but we might give up a lot less. That's the evolution for me. I want to be a really good 200-foot player in the league, and that doesn't change. That is such a banger quote out of Ian McIntyre and JT Miller that I had to go out there and include it in this one, because when you think about it, yeah, sure, it's awesome to see the points, it's awesome to see the production. Miller was a 100-point guy, Pettersson a 100-point guy the year prior. But if Miller gets 80 points next season, a lot of people are going to say that's kind of a disappointment, from 103 points to 80 points. But if Miller is a part of one of the best shutdown lines in hockey that's also able to produce offense, if he has, let's say, some sort of a Ryan Kessler-like year, and Elias Pettersson goes out there and takes over, scoring 112 points and winning the Art Ross, for example, which is not going to happen because you're going to need a lot more than 112 to win the Art Ross nowadays. Sorry, the days of Henrik and Daniel Sedin winning the Art Ross are kind of over now. But if the Canucks win the President's Trophy and Miller has that decline, if he's looking good, it doesn't matter if he has that decline in points. It just matters that he's good and he's actually effective and doing the things that he's setting out to do. Imagine hearing this 3 years ago when the Canucks were coming out of that terrible bubble year in the North Division and everybody sucked and it was so disappointing all across the board. That was the year they had Braden Holtby in net and guys were getting hurt and sick and injured and Adam Gaudette was patient zero. It was terrible. And JT Miller sucked in that year. Then 2 years later, he has a big decline from 99 points to 82, but he looks also pretty bad in the process. If we think about this pattern, Miller goes from good year to bad year to good year to bad year to good year, so maybe this previous year was the best year he'll have, and maybe he declines. But he's saying that he wants to not have that happen to him. He doesn't want to become that defensive liability. He wants to be able to continue to play strong and have that Rick Tocchet fire under him. And that's awesome. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, how you feel about JT Miller heading into the upcoming season. We had already made a few videos talking about point production and everything, and that's also fun to talk about, but I wanted to go over Miller's mindset heading into 2024-2025 because this iMac article does a fantastic job at shedding the light as to what the guy's thinking about. So thoughts in the comment section below about JT Miller and the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks are playing later today, and I hopefully will be able to make a post-game video about it. Not too sure, though. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.